On this episode of Glowing Up Asian, we talk to Hugh Yao, founder and CEO of LingoAce. His glow-up origin story began when he started to learn English as a 12-year-old kid. He didn't know it then, but becoming bilingual would later help him launch an international career where he would work for American companies throughout the Asia-Pacific region. When he became a father, he wanted to open the same opportunities for his son, and that led him to start LingoAce, a global edtech company that's now the leading online language learning platform for children. Today, he shares with us his observations on the Asian diaspora that LingoAce serves and why Asian parents value academics so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Glowing Up Asian, a podcast where we break down the stereotypes and expectations about what it means to thrive as an Asian in America. I'm Daisy Kong, and today I'm joined by Hugh Yao, CEO and founder of LingoAce.
Hello, everyone. It's my honor to be here to really share some experience from myself.
You know, one thing I really love about LingoAce is just your origin story and how you founded it really for your son to help him learn Chinese by making it a lot more fun and effective. And I think that's something that a lot of immigrant Asian parents want for their children, is to be bicultural and bilingual in both their heritage culture and their new home country language.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, and I believe some of you already know this story. When I found this business, definitely it's really about, and we moved our family from China to Singapore. And also actually, and my son actually look at English as the, major language. So that's why actually we have the difficulty to really keep him and speaking and Mandarin at home or, in school. So that's why actually we found the company to make sure that we can bring the best and Mandarin learning experience to everywhere, no matter you are in Singapore, you are in US, you are in Europe or Australia.
So before we get into the story of LingoAce, I wanted to take a little bit back, to go back a little bit and talk about your own origin story and learn more about how did you come to learn English?
Yeah, actually, and I'm also a bilingual basically, and I start to learn English actually from 12 years old. So basically, I spent many years actually in a very boring way to learn English. But again, I think the result was pretty good because, since I can speak English, so I get much bigger, world to really to understand more about different cultures. And after I joined and after I graduated from university, definitely I work for the US American companies like IBM, Oracle, Salesforce. I help them to manage their Asia business. So that's the way to even broaden my view about the business. Now I understand actually how America run a business, run a global business to really serve big customers from many countries. That's a way how to organize a multiple culture background team together. That makes me really feel about the power of the language. So of course, after that, actually, I moved my family to Singapore. That's also another stage of my personal life. So basically, in Singapore is kind of the city, a country, and combining East and West together, it brings a lot of the possibilities in one small country. So in the country, definitely, and I founded LingoAce as a company. And now, actually, you can see that LingoAce already serves students and customers from more than 100 countries, and including North America, Europe, Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, and Australia as well. So that's really about a very actually an interesting journey. And from young kids, 12 years old, and couldn't speak English, but actually until now 40 years plus, and and old entrepreneur can really help 100,000 and students globally. That's an amazing journey.
And was that always the plan? Like when you started studying English at 12 years old, was it, I wanted to have an international career, I want to be able to go out into the world and work globally? Was that always your plan?
Definitely not, because actually when we were 12 years old, so I didn't really learn actually English by my own choice. Somehow actually the school offers mandatory program. So actually everyone in the class, we must learn English. That's the power of the and education in Asian countries, right? So somehow we are forced to learn English when we were just 12 years old. Even actually our teachers couldn't speak very appropriate English, but we learned that actually by ourselves, and also we find every single opportunity to practice. So of course you remember that time actually internet wasn't very popular, right? So actually we even have kind of the so-called English corner. So we have a bunch of the students, we hang out together, we speak English with each other. So that's the way we learn in English. And we never thought about some days we can really live and outside of China. We didn't even think about we can build a multiple and national company. So definitely, and that's not really that plan at the beginning. But actually, of course, and step by step, once I can speak and better English than others, so I have the chance to work with American companies in China to help them to manage the business in Asia Pac. And also moving forward, actually, and I get more exposure, then I realize actually probably I'm ready to run a global company. So anyway, it's not really a plan, but actually, and we just see this happen actually gradually, but in general, it's quite amazing experience.
Was that something like when even your parents, I think growing up, like a lot of Asian American kids, their parents are very like, you should do this. Did your parents have a path for you, and did you follow that in any way, or did you go a different direction?
That's a very, very great question, actually, and I don't think that I can speak too much on behalf of my parents, but at least from my parents' perspective, they always think about, and it's very, very important to go into a very top university or college. That's kind of something actually they feel is very, very important, which I did, right? So I went to the best university in China, and after that, I think many things are really, really actually not exactly as they plan. Again, probably, today, if I ask my parents, am I meeting all expectation? But from some angle, I think they would say yes. From career success, probably actually I have done much more than they thought. But actually, from and the lifestyle style, probably they prefer that I can spend more time with them instead of the travel around the world. So every year, probably I only spend less than a week with them. So for that part, I think it's kind of not exactly the expectation, but actually that's life, right?
Very true. And I guess on the topic of just parenting, I know because LingoAce works with learners from over 100 different countries, you've probably had a lot of observations from both Asian style parenting as well as Western style parenting. And I'm kind of curious, like, what are your main takeaways from just working with different types of students?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that a lot of the ideas about Asian parenting style, right? So actually tiger moms, parenting, and all these kind of things. Definitely, I think in Asian culture, like, Japan, Korea, China, and most of the families look at actually very, very great academic results, and also top universities are very, very important for the whole education. And I believe some of the reason is really about the past few years, a few decades. So the economic of Asia grows very fast. So that's why a lot of the parents themselves, they see the education really change life, right? So for example, like myself, it's kind of live example. So I got very good education in China. So that's why I have the opportunity to work with American companies. And also after I get exposure more, I can, build the capability to run my own, the global companies. So that's really a live example of, and the success of, and education in angle of the Asian parents. So that's why today I still think about a lot of the Asian parents and agree and also continue to believe that education changes life. So that's why they push very hard for the kids are really, really good on their, the mother tongue, on the second language, in many ways, in many cases, which is English, right? And also they need to be very good on math, they need to be very good on art so that they can be very, very outstanding and so they can go to the, top universities. So that still, works in Asian and culture background. So that's why it's very, very understandable. But actually, recently we can see that a lot of the change is happening as well. For example, like, AI development recently. So that also give a lot of the, the thinking to many parents as well. How should they, or maybe myself, I'm parent as well, right? So how shall we really raise our kids in the new context of the whole change of the world? So of course, I also see a lot of the great ideas from Western and Western parenting as well. So you think about actually in the Western families, actually many of them don't push academic result that much. So they spend a lot of time to really build the characters of the young kids through sports. So they build the perseverance and the characters. They encourage the creativities of the young kids. So that's why I truly believe in the future there's no Asian culture and parenting culture or maybe Western and parenting. So I think we need to put them together So combining and of the Asian parenting and the Western parenting, so can help us to build next generation. Firstly, they are really good on academic, so they can really have kind of the logic thinking, which is very strong, and also basically they can have more creativities, and also they have more perseverance when they see many challenges in their life. So again, I think basically this world is kind of a global world actually, and if no matter the parents from the Eastern and Asian culture background or Western culture background, if we can learn something from each other, definitely the combination of the difference and the parenting can make the next generation ready for the uncertain and generation.
I noticed one thing you mentioned was like they do want their children to like learn their mother tongue. And for some, it starts off as like the Asian language that is from whatever their parents had spoken, but then they eventually adopt English. It's a very common struggle between parents and children in immigrant families to like continue to learn that native tongue. And so I know that was like the start of LingoAce was like that of your own personal battle with your son. I'm curious, what made you realize that this like very private conversation between parents and kids was something that actually many parents struggle with and wanted a solution?
Most of the immigrants family and from Asia, no matter where they live, they and United States, Canada, Europe, and Australia, so they are all struggling on the way to maintain their mother tongue, right? So basically, for young kids, actually, I faced a very similar situation with my child as well, because in a local language environment, it's not cool to speak your mother tongue, right, in front of others. That's why, for example, even some young kids feel like to speak Mandarin, Japanese, Korean, all these kind of languages is a shame in front of other kids. So that's why actually, we believe actually, and there are a few ways to improve that. So number one, definitely is really about to make the young kids feel proud to speak their mother tongue. So that's their identity, right? So that's why actually we need to work together to really to build the respect to different culture, to make sure every young kids, when they speak their own mother tongue, they feel proud of it instead of the feel shame of that. That's kind of something we need to build as adults to make this kind of the society more like and inclusive. That's I think many and AAPI and the communities are doing this. But other than that, I think that we also need to make the learning fun, right? So actually, for example, the young kids learning a language, their mother tongue, but actually they don't really use that in daily basis, right? When they go to the restaurants, they don't really see the menu in their mother tongue. So when they actually, go to travel, they don't really speak the mother tongue and frequently. So that's why, anyway, I think that we need to make the learning and the fun. So for example, that's why LingoAce build a very interactive and program for younger kids. So think about for young kids, the golden age group was like, under 3, maybe to 80 years old. So when they are 3 to 80 years old, they can acquire a language so quickly, right? So even actually in the future, and even in the future, they don't really speak the language that much. So they can still pick up the language anytime if they can really have the foundation when they are 3 or 80 years old. So that's why LingoAce really focus on the age group to make sure young kids from 3 to 15 years old can really learn the language to build the foundation and to build the confidence of speaking, of listening, and a little bit on reading and on writing as well. So that will provide a lot of the confidence and also possibilities. Think about actually, it's not only about and to learn a language, so you can have a better career, you can have and a higher income, but it's more about more possibilities, right? So you can explore your bigger world and through your bilingual capability. It's cool, right? So another one is really about, and the young kids can also build connection with their parents, with their grandparents, right? So to really and show this kind of their which and part of the culture they belong to. So this is very important. That's why LingoAce definitely has done something, but actually still a long way to go. We would like to build more to really and encourage more young kids feel it's proud of to speak their mother tongue, and also like to speak in their mother tongue, and also learn that in a fun way. That's something we'd like to do.
You brought up an interesting point, like where a lot of this is like one very common topic that happens with like a lot of Asian immigrant families, is like the battle between like learning your native tongue. I'm curious, have you had any other observations about the immigrant Asian diaspora community? So like beyond just like across the world, like is there other similarities that you have noticed?
Yeah, that may know it's very interesting. We see that actually it's more about the generation. When we see the first generation diaspora, so very interesting observations really about no matter they live in LA, they live in Singapore, they live in Hong Kong, many of them share the same lifestyle. So that's why they always think about learn the mother tongue is so important. So that's why actually and they push very harder and to and make sure the kids can speak the language actually they spoke, right? So which is very, very, very important for the first generation diaspora. But actually, and after a few generations, I think that basically, and they will be more, local. So that's kind of the very, very difficult for the parents to push and the younger kids to learn their, and mother tongue. But actually, very interesting. I have some observations really about sometimes we can see that, and maybe from the first gen, they push the mother tongue very, very badly. And for second gen, maybe they lose the interest. But actually goes to the third gen. Actually, the second gen push the third gen very badly because they feel it's a regret. They don't really speak and their mother tongue very well. So, for example, actually, I met some parents. They actually they told me, I wish actually my parent pushed me hard enough so I can learn Mandarin actually when I was young and much better. And then I have more possibilities than today. So that's why what I can do is really about, and I push my kids. I will ask them to learn Mandarin earlier. So that's kind of the very interesting, and the observation when we talk with different parents in US, in and Europe, and Australia, Southeast Asia as well. But, more and more people realize it's very, very important to have, a bilingual instead of the, just one language in the country they live, because that really brings more possibilities for the next generations.
Would you say that that trend between like the first, second, and third generations, like let's say within the Chinese diaspora, is like pretty similar across different countries, like even in the US, Thailand, or Singapore? Like, do you see that trend pretty common?
Yeah, that's pretty, and we probably offers in different country the kind of the slightly different. But actually, I really see that currently you can see that the whole world, the economic actually is kind of integrated, right? So in that way, I think a lot of the parents and realize that the advantage of the bilingual is very important. So one thing is really about, and the kids have more possibilities. But even beyond that, actually, and a lot of the research shows that, and if the young kids can have a very different or maybe complex second language and ability, so that's why that will help them to develop the cognitive ability as well. So that's why actually, and many parents really think about the bilingual or even trilingual would be very important for their kids. So that's kind of the something LingoAce also believe is our a mission to help more families.
Another topic I wanted to talk with you about was just like a little bit more about Asian style parenting, which is like very focused on academics and more specifically like focused on the exams and like doing well on exams. And I think there's this stereotype among Asian parents, especially mothers, that they're the tiger moms. And so like it's controversial, but there is like it is a style that you do see sometimes where parents are very strict and like they're very heavy emphasis on like getting good grades, whereas it's kind of like in contrast to like the culture, let's say in the US, which is exams are important, but it actually the application for college, you have to be very well-rounded and you have to have like a lot of extracurricular and a lot of activities to like show that you're a whole person. Any thoughts on like those two different approaches, like where you have someone's like very focused on like one thing, but then like you have like a system that's very like, it needs to be, you have to do everything.
I think basically, and as I mentioned about the Asian parenting and the Western parenting, actually fundamentally there are a lot of the difference. And also the reason is really about actually, and the parents sees the benefit of education themselves and since they are well educated, right? So for example, many parents and their Asian parents, they are in US right now. And because they have very, very good education, right? So they're the best students actually in Asia. So they have the opportunities to move the family to the United States. So that's the reason they see the benefit. That's why they hope their kids can really enjoy that, can repeat the success somehow. Actually, I think that's kind of the reason. But actually, and I also understand in the Western parenting culture, right? So actually, and we need the kids need a lot of the activities. They need to be very good on sports, very good music, to make sure they can enjoy their time when they grow up. They can maintain the very great creativities. They can challenge the stakeholder and can really be the leader of the communities which are also very, very great in the context of the Western culture. But I think the interesting part is really about, since the Asian parents already live in US, right? So actually, and those parents need to follow the rule in this part of the world. So that's why actually we also see many Asian parents are changing as well. So they will also to really invest a lot of time on the sports, and also invest a lot of time on the art and music, this kind of the area. So make sure the kids can really have fun. So basically, I think these two styles actually, as I mentioned about, and Asian parents parenting style definitely has very great actually at the outcome, because the kids have very strong academic foundation. So that academic foundation can really give them more potential, right, when they grow up, no matter in academic area or in a professional job. But actually, also the Western and the culture also through the sports, they can build very strong that perseverance, the grit and the mindset, and also the creativity, and also be a challenger to stakeholder. All these also to help the young kids to grow. So that's why I think more and more I see many of our Asian parents, they absorb a lot of the good ideas from the Western parenting. And also recently I see on LingoAce, we also have many Caucasian families. They ask their kids to learn Mandarin with us. So I can also some the Caucasian families and the non-Asian families, basically they would like to also improve the an academic result as well. So again, I think that these two cultures definitely can share some ideas with each other, and also to make the younger kids ready for the future.
So I know we're nearing the end of our conversation, and I want to bring it back to the glowing up Asian theme. And I know that when you learned English as starting at 12 years old, it was always in a classroom environment. And I'm assuming when you started working for an American company, that's when you really had to put it to use. Were there any stories of just how you were able to navigate, let's say, your leadership teams that are in the United States, as well as but working with your colleagues who are across the Asia Pacific? How did you learn to navigate that in real life and use what you have learned in the classroom?
Learning a language is just a starting point, right? So since I can speak English, so I have the opportunity to work with American companies. But actually, when I joined a company at an early stage, actually I was quite struggling, right? Because as a Asian employees, so I was very quiet. Basically, when the leaders have some kind of the challenges, normally we just follow the leaders, right? So instead of give our ideas, instead of to really share my voices and to share my understanding about business, that was the situation. I think the first few years I was quite struggling, and later I realized actually. Since I understand more about the business than our leaders, because our leaders are in US actually, and we were in Asia Pac, so we understand the business more than that, DDX at least. So that's why actually, I gradually changed my style to really share more voices, and to give them suggestions, to give them proposals, and to really execute as well. So that really grow my career in MSC, IBM, Oracle, and Salesforce. Very interestingly, actually, and I also observed very similar situation in LingoAce as a global company. As Stacy, you mentioned, we have team members in US, we have and even bigger team in Asia Pac. So we see many interesting difference like that. For example, when I have the meeting with American team, so no matter which position they are, they can really ask about what is the company's vision, what is the roadmap, what is the and the challenge as a CEO, what keeps you awake and overnight. So basically, all these kind of the very and the creative questions actually are from sometimes they are from very junior and entry level and employees. So we think that's a great and culture, and we can work together. We can make this company, we can make this team, we can make everybody better. But at the same time, actually, and we can also see that in our Asia Pac team, so they are super strong on execution. So very few of them will ask what is the roadmap, what is the direction of the company. But as long as we have the plan, they just execute and relentlessly. So that's why actually we can see the result very quick, and also with higher quality, and iterate very fast in Asia Pac. So that's why actually I think about it's very interesting, and it is amazing experience to manage a global company. So that's why we can see the different and employees and style, and from the different culture. So that's why actually, and I really think about it's very important to integrate the company as one, which is what I'm doing now, right? So to make sure like, and the Asia Pac team, they can really see more and the vision and the mission of the company, can really look at a even longer view about business, can be more like, strategic thinking. And also we can really have like, an American team work very closely with the Asia Pac team to make sure we can iterate our business, we can iterate our customer experience and very quickly, so that we can really provide much better customer experience. And also we can bring more value to our customer, and also we can develop the organization. So that's why actually, anyway, so I think that from the why I'm able to really see the difference, and also at least I'm working on an integration of the two different cultures. I think it's really because at the early stage, and I have the experience as a participant, right? So as a the junior employee in American company, myself experience and how I work with them, how I really change my working style from very Asian style and gradually to a little bit American style. So now I will say there's multiple culture styles for now. So again, think about the opportunity. It's very important because I can speak English, right? So I'm a bilingual. So that's why I get the opportunity. I get the culture, and the exposure. So I can really manage a global business right now. So that's kind of the different stage. So that's why be a bilingual is very powerful to really build can help everyone to build a career and step by step.
Do you have like example like where that has really come to help you like overcome a specific challenge, like whether it's like some type of misunderstanding where you're able to just like, oh, actually this is what this means and this, and I'm kind of curious about like those types of stories, because like those are like the real, like really putting everything to use.
Yeah, I think definitely, and it happens every day. We see that. So as I mentioned about in Asia Pac, many actually employees actually they are not very direct, right? So means actually they have some thoughts about the business, they have some thoughts about their own career, right? But actually normally they don't really speak out, right? So actually as a leader, we shouldn't, at least I don't really make the assumption, okay, they are fine, but actually they are not fine. Right? So they have a lot of ideas actually, and so that's why we need to have, the very the nice and the long conversation with them to discuss actually what the trouble they are facing now. Because as leader, I always believe it's very important for us to make our team members' life easier, right? So that's why actually we need to spend more time with them to really figure out and what they would like to achieve, what they feel, what they feel proud of that, all these kind of things. And actually, so that's why this is one part. But another part is about work with American team. So actually, they ask better question, very direct, very straightforward. So it doesn't mean they are not satisfied with the situation. It just, they would like to understand more. They would like to challenge the stakeholder to make the situation even better. So that's why, and as a leader and myself, I don't really feel this is kind of the offense. It's not. So it's really about everybody would like to make a company better and through their different ways. So that's why for myself, I have the multiple cultural background, so I can understand that. But I also encourage my leaders, because some of my leader live in US, but they have like team members in Asia Pac. Some of my leaders live in Asia Pac, they have team members in America. So that's why actually, and make sure they understand the way and of the communications in different cultural backgrounds. That's a super important to run a multiple culture and the company. And I think that's kind of the challenge we are facing, and also we are working on that. So I think still a long way to go, but actually, and I feel it's a very exciting journey to make sure the people from different cultures can work together. So you can imagine that it is very difficult, but once we can achieve that, we can really have the best part of Asian culture and also the best part of American culture. If we put them together, I think the result will be definitely much better than a single culture company.
One final question, which is being both a parent and in the education space, what's your hope for the next generation?
I think I have a lot of conversation with my son as well. So as some of you know, and the reason of building LingoAce is somehow because I want to have the better, and the dual language program for my own child. So for the next generation, specifically for my own children very specifically, I think it's really about, and they need to really have the perseverance and also to embrace the uncertainties, right? Because right now everybody knows that actually, and the things happen over last 30 years was really, really but actually we believe next 30 years, the change will be coming in a much, much faster way, right? So that's why actually, no matter which skills they have, is not enough. So that's why no matter language or maybe math and even coding and the skill wise is not enough for them to face the, in the future world. So I think it's more about their creativity, their perseverance, their character can really help them to embrace the change, embrace the uncertainty. But for us, I think always, as parents, we just give the best wish and also to, equip them with and more characters and more creativities and less skills.
Thank you. I love that.
Thanks.
Thanks.